Welcome to Ask Ralph and Lonnie, where we answer your questions about natural health and environments.
Today we're going to talk about the importance of living with electronics and electromagnetic fields and computers and even the electricity inside of our walls, because these are big issues today and everyone, or just about everyone, is affected by it.
The human body was never designed to deal with the onslaught of electromagnetic pollution in our daily environments. When we talk about even the simple things of living with electricity, causes such a problem for us because electrical impulses cause our muscles to tense up ever so slightly. And then we have to use stored magnesium in our muscles in order to relax that muscle again. Well, when that happens continuously, you can see that pretty quickly we're going to run out of magnesium.
The first part of the strategy is to look in your environment and make changes to reduce your exposure. You don't realize how much you're exposed to this all the time. You see, the problem starts with this. Your body, my body, everyone's bodies were designed to run on a direct current electricity. It runs one smooth direction. But starting with Tesla, the electricity that most of us use today is primarily alternating current. It changes direction 60 times a second. It means instead of having to have cables this big around, we can have wires this big around. And we can have wonderful tools like cell phones and other types of devices. The problem is that our body, when it feels AC current like that, the only place where it recognizes it in nature is in lightning. And as we know, that's not something that we're really comfortable with. So, think of your electronics as packaged lightning and decide about how far you want them from your body. The most important time is when you're sleeping, because your body is up to 2,000 to 10,000 times more sensitive to electromagnetic fields when you're sleeping than when you're awake. So make sure that any electronic is preferably at least an arm's length from your body, at least minimum, preferably more. Also, make sure that nothing is running, using electricity up while you're sleeping near your body. And the reason is this. When electricity is sitting in the walls, the field is only 6 to 8 to 10 inches, right? So there'll be electricity in the wall, but you may not be affected by it. But once you have that clock radio running by the side of the bed, electricity is running through the wire into the clock radio and making that little device spin. That creates what's called an electromagnetic field, and those fields are very, very big, and they can be quite toxic. So the first thing you do is unplug the clock radio, go over to your window, open the window up and just toss it out. Get rid of it, because that's the worst thing you want to have in your bedroom. Go out to the store, buy a battery-operated clock. Most travel alarms are battery-operated. That's a DC current, direct current. Put that next to your bed. That's the first place to start. Another thing you might want to do is, your body runs like a battery. It has two poles. A battery has a north pole and a south pole, or a positive and negative. So does your body. The positive pole is by your head. The negative pole is by your feet. Your body is designed to run energy from your head towards your feet. That's everything works. That's the way it works with gravity. The Earth has a pole as well. It has a north pole and a south pole. Energy flows from its north pole to its south pole. You want to line your body up in the same way when you're sleeping. You want your north pole pointed towards the Earth's north pole. You will find you will sleep much better. When people sleep the other way around, where their head is facing towards the south, one of the things that we find happens is anxiety attacks, because the field is trying to be flipped. So you want to avoid that. Now, what else do you want to look at? First of all, many people are very addicted to their cell phones. And they're just such handy devices. What you want to do is, first of all, don't keep it in your bedroom with you when you're sleeping, because this thing is still running, and these things are microwaves. And so don't put it on your pillow or put it by the side of your bed as your alarm clock. There's better alarm clocks than that. 2, when you're driving in your car, move it away from you. Put it over in the other seat. Put it over up on the, on the dash, the lower part of the dashboard. Don't keep it in your pocket the entire time. A lot of studies have been shown where men who kept cell phones on their hip all the time in little holsters started getting tumors in those bones and in those muscles from the cell phone exposure all the time. So be conscious of that stuff. Lots of people text today. Texting is much more healthy than it is to keep that phone right up against your head. You know, texting, you're at least keeping it a distance away from you. And when you do use it on the speakerphone whenever possible. Personally, I use a wired headset. And I also have certain devices that I put on the back of my phone. There's devices that are out there that are designed to minimize the effects of these electromagnetic fields. So those are the kinds of things you want to look at.
Switching gears to the office, which I know is where I spend a large part of my day, it's also important to choose the direction that you're facing when you're working at your computer. In the bedroom, you want it to have your head pointing towards the north. But when you're working at your computer, you want to actually be facing south. And it's for the same reason. It's because of the North Pole, South Pole energy flow from the Earth. You also want to allow enough space around you as well, just like we did in the bedroom. We don't want to be able to bump up against the CPU or try to keep your monitor and your computer an arm's length at least away from your body as well, because this continued exposure to these electromagnetic fields is what is so problematic, not just for things like tumors, as Ralph said, but also for disrupting your own electromagnetic field. And what that means is confusion, forgetfulness, brain fog, headaches, there are different aspects of that, including anxiety and stress components that also will be challenged by having these objects too close to you. This is again where protective technology becomes very, very important. There are tabs and devices that contain things like cobalt and rare earths that are able to absorb some of these fields and transmute them into something that is a lot less dangerous. And if it gets to be difficult or expensive to put these devices on each one of your electronics, I know people have many, many electronics in their environments these days. They also sell them in terms of a bead that can be put on a necklace. And if you use that, it protects you from anything that you're in exposure distance to. You want to make sure, though, that you're going to put that bead on a chain or a string or whatever you're going to wear around your neck that puts the length of it in line with your thymus.
Now, there's also things you can do to help yourself at the computer that are supplements. We use a formula called Perfect Eyes, and there's an herb that we've used for, 30 years, and it's been used for hundreds of years, called Eye Bright. And it actually feeds the eyes. It feeds the muscles of the eyes and provides a lot of nutrition for the eyes. The amino acid L-taurine is very, very important for the eyes. It's one of the central amino acids for the eyes. In fact, the nice thing about L-taurine is it also reduces anxiety. And we find many times people who suffer from anxiety attacks, if they'll take L-taurine and magnesium together, it turns off an anxiety attack like that. It's really quite remarkable. But you have to take large enough amounts. You can't take the 1 and 1. You take 3 and 4 of each, because L-taurine is actually found in mother's milk. It's one of the reasons why breastfed babies are very relaxed. Horsetail is a wonderful herb. We use it both as a single herb and we use it in formulas as well. It's very high in silica. Now, it's known because it gives you beautiful nails and beautiful hair because of the silica. It's very good for the skin. But silica is also important for pulling heavy metals out of the system. We are all exposed to so many heavy metals these days. And remember, in the office place, everything around you practically is synthetic. The desks, the chairs, the computers, the mouses, and the mice, and they're all basically, there's some heavy metals in there, there's petrochemicals in there, and the silica in the horsetail is really good for that as a supplement. Another thing that's very helpful for that is black walnut, because it protects you from radiation. And as Lonnie mentioned before, magnesium. If you're around electromagnetic fields, if you work in an office, or even if you drive a car a lot, there's a lot of electrical field inside of a car, you should supplement with magnesium daily. It is the best deal in good health. It costs very, very little. It does so much. You see, when years ago, when people lived, with gas lights and candles and such, and we didn't have electricity in the houses, our bodies needed much more calcium. Calcium makes the body tighten. Like kaopectate, it makes the bowels tighten. But when you need the body to relax, you add magnesium. Like milk and magnesia makes the bowels relax. This is a very well-known concept. Well, from all these electromagnetic fields making us tighten, we use up all the magnesium we have stored in the muscles, and after a while you get these constant pains in what's called the trapezius muscles. You get headaches in the front of the forehead. The bowels get locked up. Sometimes people get heart palpitations and leg cramps, muscle cramps from lack of magnesium. So 2 of those a day, 1 or 2 of those a day does wonders. And finally, in your office, make sure you have a good chair. We speak a lot about ergonomics and ergodynamics, and one thing we know is that the most used piece of tool or furniture in the office is your chair. It's, you're at your desk anytime. If you're thinking, you're talking, or you're on the computer, you're still using your chair. And it's amazing how many times people are not effective because their chair is not comfortable. So make sure you have a good chair. Spend a little bit extra on that. And while we're talking about that, we have a great little book called the Dream Desk Questionnaire. And it leads you through the multiple steps necessary to have a really effective workplace. And one of the steps, one of the 7 questions in there, is about the ergonomics. Make sure that you have enough space around you. Like, in other words, don't cram yourself into a space where you have no room behind you. You should have enough room behind you that you can move around easily. Make sure you can command the door, that you can see where the entranceway is. Don't put your back to the door unnecessarily. That puts the body into the fight or flight reflex. That makes your body use up magnesium, but also lots and lots of vitamin C, which is very important for your immunity. Make sure your chair is the right height for your desk and for your keyboard. If you're using a mouse, if your mouse is up here on the desk and you're spending your whole day reaching out like that, after a while your arm is going to start hurting. Get a little side table, put it over here by the side, and put the mouse down at the height of your armrest. So really look at your desk, look at the motions you have to make every single day, and how easy are you making it for yourself? Because our bodies were not really designed to do these kind of restrained motions day in and day out. We're designed to be out there walking and gathering and hunting and using our muscles in different ways. And these small motions after a while start really wearing away, so make them as easy as possible.
Because this problem of electric and electromagnetic pollution is so ubiquitous, it's important for people to realize that you're not just looking at the environment that you're in. If you're in the bedroom, you're in the office, you can look at what the obvious electronics or electromagnetics that are being created in that space are. But a lot of times where people go a little bit off is they forget about the fact that if you're in an office, your feet might be standing on top of a fluorescent light fixture that's shared in the office below. Or your back may be pointed to a large screen display array in the next office, or that could also translate into a stereo or a television being in the room next to a bedroom where a child is trying to sleep or you're trying to sleep, and you don't realize that these things are instant on, which means they're never off. And also look outside your exterior walls to see if there's a transformer nearby or a cell phone tower or any kind of high tension wires that may be actually raining down electromagnetic pollution or blowing it in your direction with the prevailing winds.
The other day someone asked me about metal buildings, which of course set me off because there was actually a study recently that showed that we know that cell phones affect us. No matter what studies say, oh no, it doesn't affect us. The people who are doing those studies are the ones selling the cell phones, but everyone knows that cell phones affect us. It's been shown that the effect of cell phones is up to 4 to 5 times worse inside of a car. Why? Cars are made out of metal. Metal bounces electromagnetic fields. So it's basically like being in an echo chamber. It all bounces around you. You get the same effect to a certain extent inside of a metal building. And many industrial buildings and corporate buildings are actually built out of metal. For years, many people used metal studs inside the walls and still do. But the metal buildings especially, I remember we had a client years ago, a health client, who had changed offices and they had moved into a metal building and his whole body locked up. His immune system just flooded. What was happening was he was being hit by so much electromagnetic radiation that his immune system, which was weak from lack of sunlight and not having enough essential fatty acids and vitamin D3, was already sensitive. It went into high gear and it just flooded the system with white blood cells and with mucus, and his whole system just locked up because of being inside basically a metal building. Now there were nutritional things he needed to work on as well. You need your body to be strong to stand up to these things, and there's ways in which you can help your body do that. One of the great foods for that is an herb called astragalus. This is a Chinese herb. It doesn't sound very Chinese. The name astragalus, astra actually means star. It's the Latin name for it. But what it works on is the thymus gland. You see, when you're affected by radiation, it's the thymus gland that has to clean up, because the thymus gland is the central gland of the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is what gets old junk, old cellular junk out of the system. You actually have more lymph fluid than you have blood. There's a lot of cleaning going on in the body all the time. And it's based upon your motions. Your physical motion is what makes your lymphatic system work. You see that your heart pumps the blood, but your lymph depends upon muscles clamping and moving. That's why it's important to walk fairly often to get your lymphatic glands, to process everything. And astragalus is tremendously good for the thymus gland. In fact, for years, the Chinese army, whenever they'd send soldiers out on maneuvers, they would make sure they had a kilo of astragalus per soldier. This was in case someone dropped an atomic bomb. The astragalus would help the body stand up to the onslaught of damaged cells that would flood the thymus gland, and they would be able to keep fighting. So it's really a wonderful herb. Another herb I like for that also is black walnut. Black walnut has a lot of wonderful benefits, but it's very, very good for helping the body pull radiation out of the system. It also has a secondary benefit. It's very good for getting rid of parasites, which is a yucky thing, and getting rid of yeast out of the system. Many men's problems with their prostate is actually a problem with yeast and parasites, microscopic parasites, getting into the prostate and clogging it up and causing the problem. And this is really good for this. Also, another thing that's great for the prostate and also for the overall hormonal system is pumpkin seeds. If you eat pumpkin seeds on a regular basis, you'll find that your overall hormonal system to do better, but also you will find that your sense of taste gets better. Kelp is a tremendous plant. Kelp is basically the ocean, it's the forests of the ocean. It's extremely high in iodine. One, that protects the thyroid gland. Now the thymus is a little lower in the chest. The thyroid is right up by the throat. The thyroid depends upon almost a perfect pH to absorb iodine correctly. And if the thyroid doesn't absorb correctly, your metabolism goes out of whack. Usually it goes lower. Now and then it will go higher, but usually it goes lower. In fact, the drugs for boosting the speed of the thyroid are some of the biggest selling in the world. For years we've used thyroid material. That's very, very good for that. That's actually armor thyroid material, which is actual thyroid material people would supplement with. But kelp is very good for protecting the thyroid, but additionally it has components within it called algin that gloms onto radioactive particles in the body, radiation in the body, and what's called chelates. It grabs onto it and then allows it to be dragged out of the system. This is one of the reasons why the Japanese, who have eaten primarily seafood as their prime protein for so long, with the issue of heavy metals that you find in seafood, and yet have prospered with this. They're some of the most intelligent IQs in the world because the kelp grabs hold of those heavy metals and any radiation and helps get them out of the system. So, keep eating that sushi and those seaweed salads. They're really wonderful for you.
As we were talking about the devices that you can put onto your electronic equipment to protect you from some of the fields that might be emanating from them. There's a wonderful resource that we have where we get a lot of these devices, and they're specifically made for different devices. They have one for a microwave, although I don't know who would want to use them in their house. But they have them for cell phones, and they have them for computers, and they have them for your circuit breaker box. And they're, as I said, a mixture of rare earths that all contain qualities that help to absorb and then transmute this energy into one that's more easily tolerated by the body. And in many of them, a component is cobalt. In fact, some of these tabs are that beautiful cobalt blue. And so you can see obviously that they have cobalt in them. The reason I want to go into that is that historically, when the light bulb was first created, we recognized that the electricity could be detrimental to us. And in very, very old light bulbs, and yes, I'm old enough to have seen them, so they're just a faint memory, but I do remember them. There was a little piece of blue glass at the bottom of the bulb, just at the point where it makes contact, just past the contact point when you screwed it into the socket. And that blue glass over time seemed to become more and more expensive for manufacturers, and then after a while they forgot about why it was there in the first place. But the cobalt was there to protect people from the electromagnetic field that was going to be created when that bulb was actually lit.
Now that the cat's out of the bag, I should actually show you the book. This is the Dream Desk Questionnaire. It's 7 questions. And as we describe here, improving personal and team performance through recognizing your ergodynamic personality. And I should explain a little bit what ergodynamics are. Ergonomics basically mean the natural laws of work. Ergo is work, nomics is natural laws. Ergodynamics means the movement of energy at work. Well, what's the primary energy that moves at work? It used to be just people. People were the primarily energy that moved at work, people and animals. Now, a lot of the energy we deal with is electromagnetic and electrical energy. It's interesting that years ago, you would sit at a desk, but if you worked at a desk, you weren't there all the time. You would be up on your feet, you'd be going to the files, you'd go down to the mail room, you'd go off and you'd talk to other people, you'd have meetings, you had to be up and moving around all the time. Well, today, when you need to go to a file, you go to a different place on your computer. When you need to go to the mailroom, you send an email. When you need to do research, you don't go down the hall to the library, you go to the World Wide Web. So it's making people sit a lot more. So it becomes very important when you work, especially at home or in an office, that you take time on a regular basis to get up and move around so that your lymphatic system can pump and move. Another issue that comes up all the times, and it's an issue of the eyes, is the fact that we were designed as hunters and gatherers to always be looking at different distances. In fact, we didn't use the power of sight as much as we do today. Today we're very dependent on sight. Years ago, we used the sense of smell. Where are animals near us? Do I smell danger? Do I smell water? Do I smell plants? The sound of hearing, do we hear animals off in the distance? The feeling of touch, what's the texture? Now, our fingers are in touch with keyboards, and our eyes are always looking at something a very specific distance from our body. The eyes weren't designed to do that. They were designed to change focus as those muscles flex and pump, nutrition in and acids out, nutrition in and toxins out. Well, now our eyes are so locked in these positions for a long period of time that in the tiny little capillaries that feed the eyes, when free radicals get in there, free radicals look like little spiked balls, they're damaged cells. When they get in there, they have to go down, just like the regular cells, one blood cell at a time. And if they're jagged and if those muscles are not flexing, they build up in there and it causes people a lot of, eye problems. Either they become short-sighted, long-sighted, or they get, fog, or they get, things moving around in their vision. You need to set something up in your space so that your eyes will go and look in a different distance on a regular basis. So your eyes will change focus on a regular basis. And that's actually one of the questions in here. It's about when you're working, what are you looking at? Like in other words, when you look away from your computer, where do your eyes go? Because the message you get from that says a whole bunch to your body. If you look away and you see 50 Post-it notes, know what it tells you? I am so overwhelmed, I cannot stand it. I don't know what to do first. But if you look over and you see a picture of the product that you sell or the product that you produce being effective in the world, this re-inspires for you a sense of mission. This tells you, this is what I accomplish in the world. And, as herbalists, we'll tell you that the primary questions we ask people is, do you feel loved and do you enjoy your work? And enjoying your work has a lot to do with feeling important in the world. So if you would like some help with that, you can find this, out there on the web. And the Dream Desk Questionnaire. Isn't that what we all want, is a good dream desk? Something that really helps keep us inspired.
So that's all you've ever wanted to know about living with electromagnetics? Well, maybe not quite, but if you still have questions, you can always ask Ralph and Lonnie.
Beautiful. One take, Lonnie. Yep, that's my girl.
That's it. And I'm out.
Yeah.